Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit, and always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Here we go. It's March. We're getting closer to the holidays again. I know there are distant memories right now, but it's coming up. So I'm just giving you a fair warning. Don't say I didn't warn you. I want to thank my sponsors for bringing this episode. I'm really excited about some of the episodes coming up, and they are making it possible for you. So please support them. Health code, Get Health, GETHLTH.com, great vanilla shakes, and chocolate macadamia. And they have tons of other ones, like you can add in peppermint to make a little peppermint shake to remember the holidays again, or whatever you want to do. They have tons of recipes on their website, so go check them out. Really honored to be sponsored by them. And of course, Keto Mojo, my go-to for checking ketones and glucose levels, double checking the continuous glucose monitors that could be off. And again, I would recommend going to their website. They have tons of resources, old talks, keto talks and metabolic health talks, and they're doing a lot for the community, and they really, really do give back. So enjoy this episode, and please give my sponsors a shot if you haven't already. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. Today, I have someone who's changed their life, done some great stuff. We caught each other's attention on Twitter. John Marion, welcome. You're a real estate guy. You have your own. What's the name of your podcast so people know who are into real estate?
So the main the main one that I'm doing now is called the Alpha Dog Capital Deal Flow Channel. So that's a mouthful, but my company is Alpha Dog Capital, and the Deal Flow Channel is about real estate investing.
All right. First question: are you an alpha dog?
Yeah, and I meet a lot of alpha dogs, and the way I like to use that is that Brian, you're making alpha dog moves out there. What you are doing on Twitter and the content you're putting out and the leadership that you give and your boldness and just being out there. I call that an alpha dog move. So I love the alpha dog concept, not so much for myself, but I recognize that trait in others. And it's just it's great to be part of the pack.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think we have this perception the alpha dog just wants to dominate everyone and make it has to be their way or the highway. But I think a lot of people just say, look, I'm gonna step out in courage and do something different, right? If the whole market's doing this and you go, okay, try this, it's not working for them, let's try something different. And then people gravitate to what you're doing, hopefully, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us your story. Like, growing up, was weight an issue or medical problems an issue? Healthy kid, and then bring it up to your story now that you shared on Twitter.
Yeah. So, I grew up, originally I was born in New York, but I don't really consider myself a New Yorker. I went to high school in South Florida. After high school, I went to the Washington, D.C. area where I spent most of my life and was in the nonprofit world for 26 years before I transitioned to real estate. But really my health consciousness began when I was in the nonprofit world and I hired somebody to work for me. It had nothing to do with health and nutrition, but he was very health and nutrition conscientious in what he ate. And, I saw what he was eating. He worked in my home office, and I learned a lot from him, just listening to him. And, I thought he was a bit more extreme than I would want to be. And at that time in my life, what I did, Brian, was I would wake up in the morning and open up a can of Coke and eat a donut or a pastry or something that was not really nutritious. And I did that for years and years and years. And he saw that habit in me, and he taught me a few things. I didn't really change that drastically, but I became aware of the importance of nutrition, or at least, informationally in my head, and made some minor changes that weren't really, very effective. I probably ate less sugar, but I didn't cut it out. And then when I moved to the Atlanta area, and was involved in the real estate industry in Atlanta. After I was here about a year, I got diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer, and it was on my back. And so they tested it. They said it was cancerous. They wanted to do more of a test. Then they found out that uh, two of my lymph nodes had microscopic um, cancer had gone to my lymph nodes under my arm. And so the remedy was chemotherapy, a surgery where they'll take out all my lymph nodes under my left arm, and chemotherapy. And I scheduled the surgery, went home, and I called my friend Ben, who I learned in Virginia, who I learned about health and nutrition. I said, Ben, listen, I got diagnosed with cancer, and they're going to do chemo treatment on me. Is there anything that you would recommend to help me along this, this journey I'm going to go on? And he said, John, you need to read a book that's called Beating Cancer with Nutrition. And so he sent me that book, and I read it like crazy. Like, I would say in 3 or 4 days, I just absorbed that book. And there was a couple of things that hit me. And one of the statements in the book said, sugar feeds cancer. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never heard anything like that before. And then there was a lot of explanation in the book of how our body is equipped to really fight cancer. And if we're healthy and we have healthy cells, they can kill or even convert cancer cells back into healthy cells. All kinds of stuff that were just totally new information for me. And it was all based on health and nutrition to make your body strong to fight this disease. So I was about 3 days away from the surgery. I called the doctor's office and said, I'm going to cancel the surgery. And they freaked out. And, about, a week later or 4 or 5 days later, I got a letter in the mail from the doctor himself. And, just putting me on notice that in his opinion, he thought I was making the wrong decision medically, and just wanted to put me on notice. He was nice about it and everything. But I went down the health and nutrition journey. I cut out all sugar. That was like the main thing I did. I just cold turkey, just stopped any uh, adding sugar to my food, or eating or drinking anything with sugar in it. And then I later in some other nutritional things, but that was the main thing that I did to change this. So um, time went on. I went to a doctor. He kind of encouraged me along my journey. He said, well, this is good. I think your plan is good. He also said, I think the letter your doctor wrote is good as well. But he was willing to at least give me some advice and kind of encourage me, pat me on the back, and say, what you're going to do is good. It might work, and you could overcome this with health and nutrition. But he was sort of like on the fence either way. But he was encouraging enough for me to say, okay, I think I've got this figured out. And then at the end of that appointment with that doctor, I said, Doctor, why don't more doctors recommend this health and nutrition? You seem, you're open to it. He said, most people won't do what you're going to do. And you're hitting it aggressively, you're changing cold turkey. And if you stick to the plan, you're going to benefit by it. But most people won't do what you're going to do. So we just, recommend what we recommend medically, normally, to treat cancer. And that blew me away. That just confirmed to me what everything I read in the book is true. He didn't deny it. It wasn't true. He just said, that's just the way we treat this.
So let me get it right. So you never had the surgery to cut out the melanoma?
No.
So for me, I would say you're way more of an alpha dog than me, because when I have a known cancer, I'm like, okay, cut that thing out and then we'll deal with it. So as a matter of fact, just recently I posted about a lady who had DCIS breast cancer, pre cancer, but they wanted a radical treatment on her. And I go, let's just wait and see. And let's get you into a oncologist who understands the metabolic process. Anyway, she goes into, we all said, let's just do the lumpectomy and get rid of that part of it. And when they came back, the tissue came back normal tissue, like with it where they had done the biopsy previously. When she had reversed her diabetes, lost weight, and she got, she made a lot of health changes. You go, man, she would have been really upset if
Right.
she got a double mastectomy,
Yeah.
and then it turns out you
Yeah.
have normal breast tissue, at that point by making lifestyle change. So with melanoma, I've never heard this before ever.
So just to clarify, just for your information, I did have two surgeries. They were doing a third. So the first surgery was just they cut a piece out of my back and did a test. And then they had so they tested positive for melanoma. Then they did a body scan of some kind that I can't even describe. They injected me with glucose, basically, I guess, which is interesting. They
Well,
injected me with glucose
that's a
to
PET
find the
scan.
sugar, so
That
I find the cancer because it goes to the cancer. So anyway, um, they found microscopic in two of my lymph nodes. They found something microscopic that could be cancer. Or they wanted to take it out. So they did a very minor surgery where they took out a sample from a lymph
Yeah,
node.
sentinel node biopsy, they'll call that the closest one to the cancer, and then see
There
if
you
it's in
go.
there.
So yeah, you know more about this than I do, but that was my experience. So when they took that and tested it the second time, that's when they said, "Oh, it metastasized to your lymph nodes. We need to go back in and do a third surgery and remove all your lymph nodes, and you will be under chemotherapy treatment." So that's what I did not do.
Okay, so that sounds a lot more like along the lines of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You get out the bulk of the tumor, and then you go, okay, let's kind of, do I want to go through radiation, chemo, and all these other adjuvant therapies, or do I want to try to change my lifestyle? Some people may
Yes.
choose to do both, right?
Yes. Yes. And the thing about it though, Brian, for me, if I had not met Ben and knew my friend Ben from my nonprofit days and made that phone call to him and him sending me that book, I would have went right along with the surgery. I didn't know anything. I didn't know any better. I was afraid. And if it wasn't for my friend Ben having implanted, some seeds in my brain to really think through this, I would have gone through with the surgery and under chemo, and who knows what harm that would have done to me.
Yeah, and it sounds like the way you're talking about it, he wasn't forcing this on you. You have to do this. You're gonna, he was saying, "Hey, look, here's what I do," and you're curious about what he's doing, and not have to be the preacher to everyone type thing, that everyone has to change their lifestyle. You can never eat a donut, but really saying, "Hey, look, here's what I choose to do with my life," and you do your thing, basically, right? But here's
Right.
the
Right.
ramifications of what you're doing.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that
And
was
I'm sorry, John, was weight? How old were you at that time, and was weight a struggle for you, or not really?
not really the weight, uh that wasn't a big factor. I was overweight, but not, that wasn't like a huge factor. It was more the root cause of it was just, poor nutrition.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
how old were you at that time?
Okay, so I'm 62 now. That was about 12 years ago.
All right, so you're
Yeah,
50. All right.
50. I was 50.
All
Yeah.
right. So you made some life changes.
Oh, it was huge. Yeah. I mean, it was huge. Cold turkey, I went from just eating anything that I wanted to without even giving it any thought. Um, Not trying to eat healthy, just eating whatever and really eating unhealthy. Um, to immediately saying, wow, I need to change my life completely in terms of cooking food and everything. Just eating what I eat was just a total cold turkey.
And did what you considered healthy change over time? Or
Oh,
did
it
you cut
has.
out
Yeah.
processed food? What was your big steps you did? Like it sounds like you got rid of the soda and the donuts for sure, right?
Yeah, I got rid of all anything with added sugar and sweets and candy and everything like that. And then I layered in um things like using more spices. I like to eat spicy food anyway, but things like different types of spices and things like using garlic in my cooking and onions and a little bit more vegetables. I didn't avoid meat, but I wasn't really at that time big on eating meat the way I am now. Um, but it was more avoiding the sugar and purposely putting in what things that I learned would be healthy for me at that time.
Were
And
seed oils on your radar at that time?
they were not, and I thought that probably I would say looking back, seed oils would be okay to eat. I don't think I cut them out at all. I continued with seed oils and I continued with carbs. It never made the connection that carbs converted to sugar in my body. And it took me another 8 years after that, which was about 2 years ago. And that's another part, that's part two of my journey in my story. So I don't know if you want to fast forward to that, or if you
Yeah,
had any
yeah.
questions about.
Whatever you think is helpful to people, listeners, then we don't have to fast forward that far. But yeah, I want to hear your whole journey.
Yeah. So what happened then, after I cut out the sugar and was diagnosed with cancer, cut out the sugar, I went to the dermatologist. I still go to the dermatologist every year and get checked. And I was going to the oncologist every year as well for 3 years. And every year I went to the oncologist, they would ask me, "Okay, what have you gone to your dermatologist?" Yes. Did you find anything? No. How you feeling? Feel great. Okay. Well, we'll see you next year. Okay. And
Standard.
then, and then after
That's
the third
standard.
year, um, they said, we're going to pronounce you cancer free.
Wow.
And I said,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And we recommend you coming back every year. And I said, oh, okay. I don't go back. I go to the dermatologist. I get checked. And, if he finds something,
Yeah, see your primary and get your annual labs and liver tests and all that stuff.
yeah,
Make sure everything's good. Makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So that's just what I did. So that was kind of an odd thing for 3 years. Just them really not. I didn't really need to go to the oncologist. I felt based on the questions. If I knew they were just going to ask me, how you feeling? How you doing? Did your dermatologist say anything? I wouldn't have gone. But live and learn. But that was a good experience, an interesting experience for me. Um, then and then time went on, so I kept being very disciplined on my eating habits, but I continued to eat carbs. I would eat pizza and not really think about it, and drink beer, and not a heavy drinker, but just drink beer and not think about it. And then I got into things like what I thought were healthy snacks, and I ate pretzels. Pretzel, no fat, no sugar. This is healthy. And then my eating habits were I would eat basically from the time I got up to the time, to midnight, basically. That was my kind of, graze all day long and eating lots of pretzels, and maybe not every day I would drink beer, but, maybe 3 or 4 days a week I'd drink 2 beers. I'd eat pizza. I was eating all these carbs, and looking back now, and we'll get to that in a second, but looking back now, I had kept my blood sugar elevated for years and years and years, even though I wasn't eating any sugar. And I didn't know that
Well,
until,
yeah, and that's an important thing is a lot of people say, well, I don't need anything sweet. Well, you're eating bread, pasta, rice, all those kind of things.
yeah.
And pretzels, I'm laughing because that was my drug of choice too before I went low carb. I was having these Snyder's pretzels. I'm like, these are great. There's no fat in them. I can eat them all day, right? And you're not losing weight and you're getting almost diabetic, right? So it's
Yep.
amazing how we think that way and we go, oh, these are healthy snacks I can have all the time.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. That was me. So, so that went on until about 2 years ago, and then I wanted to get a life insurance policy. Felt fine. No, wasn't sick. I never take drugs. If I go to the doctor for something, maybe an antibiotic, but you know, uh, feeling great, feeling healthy. The insurance company required me to get a blood test. So, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. And I got the numbers back, and they were all out of whack. I mean, they were messed up, big time. Especially my triglycerides were like off the chart, and I had a high AC. What are they?
A1C.
A1C. I always get that
Yeah, yeah.
confused when I talk. A1C. Yeah, the A1C was high. It was like a 7, I think, 7.1, something like that. So that's pretty high. But my triglycerides, the
And you're going
the
for life insurance or health insurance?
no, this was life insurance. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so they see that 7.1, they go, yeah, and high triglycerides, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, they denied me, and they said,
Or they're
you
going
know,
to
you
charge
need.
you a huge rate, right? I
Yeah,
bet.
yeah.
Because they,
They
they
said
understand this, they understand that
I was about to
that's a
kill me.
massive risk for all cause mortality and heart attack and strokes and dialysis and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And I felt fine. That was the thing. I didn't get the blood test because I felt sick, and so I kind of got lucky in that regard that I had the blood test and I was alerted to this. So they denied the coverage, and they said go to the doctor and get treated for this, and maybe we'll, once you're into treatment, maybe we'll issue you a policy. So I made an appointment to the doctor. It was 30 days out before I can go see the doctor. So again, I did a massive amount of research. What do you call it? Just was online and, every day and night watching YouTube videos and researching this and that. And I started learning things that just was like, wow, I can beat this with nutrition too.
Yeah, I think when you get a sense of necessity, all of a sudden you become the best researcher on earth, right? That's one of my patients when they come to
Yeah.
me. They've already looked at a lot of the data and research, and they come to me and go, "Look, what about this paper?" And I love it because I go, "I haven't seen that paper. Let's talk about it." But yeah, that's something that once before you go, no big deal. I'll have donut here and there, whatever. And then once you get diagnosed with something bad and you get diabetes, you're like, "Oh, I'm all in. What do I got to do? Someone help me. Give me some good
Yeah.
information."
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I remember watching YouTube videos like for hours and hours and hours, just taking a deep dive and trying to figure out. That's when I learned it. I learned very quickly that the carbs were keeping my blood sugar high, and I learned about intermittent fasting. A concept that I have never knew about or thought about before. But the learning about the carbs and the effect that it has on your blood sugar level just blew me away. I just was clueless. And I'd gone through this health journey 8 years previously, but about the sugar, but I was clueless about this. So I learned so much, and then I went to the doc. I changed my lifestyle again, changed my eating habits totally for 30 days. I was very disciplined, cut out carbs, eating meat, uh, just adding things back into my diet that I was told to avoid, or I thought I should avoid, like fat. And so okay, I'm eating steak now. All right, fat is not bad for me. That this is like part of my 30-day journey of just like totally changing my eating habits. Cut out all bread, no more pretzels, and just other types of foods on a case by case basis. I know vegetables. I hear different things about them. There's carbs in vegetables, but so I cut out even most of them. But anyway, that's kind of a side issue. The main thing was the big changes that I made with eating meat and avoiding carbs, and so I went to the doctor 30 days. After 30 days, and I should have grabbed my prescriptions. I have two full bottles of prescriptions he gave me, and never took them. I took one pill for the triglycerides, but I'll explain what happened. So it was a Wednesday. I went to the doctor. He had the blood test that I took through the insurance company 30 days previously. And he looked at all the numbers and he was like, "Wow, you're pre-diabetic or really diabetic. You type 2 diabetic." His diagnosis was right on the line, but anyway, type 2 diabetes. Um, and he said, I recommend that you take two medications, one for the diabetes, one for the triglycerides. And I asked him, "Well, what do you think about, using nutrition to overcome my situation?" And he said, "You're never going to overcome this with nutrition, with your numbers. You're never going to do it. I would recommend that you just eat seeds." And that's what he said to me. I said, "Oh, okay." So that hit me like a ton of bricks. He was so adamant about it. I thought, man, maybe my condition is a lot worse than I'm thinking it is. And then he
Yeah.
also prescribed that I get a new blood test. So,
Yeah, it's so
um,
amazing. Your story is kind of like I'm listening to a Hallmark movie because I hear this all the time, and I know how the doctor is going to react most of the time. I'm always surprised when someone goes, "Hey, yeah, let's do what we can." But when you tell people, "Hey, there's nothing you can do about it. You got a chronic progressive disease. All we can do is mitigate the damage with drugs." It is so frustrating because we know dang well we can't. Just today, this morning when I woke up, this doctor's on there saying, "Well, yeah, sugar has nothing to do with diabetes. Like how much sugar you eat." I'm like, how can you possibly in this day and age say that, because the insulin we give is based on how many carbohydrates you're eating. How much carbs you're eating, here's how much insulin you take to get rid of those carbohydrates. And they're saying it has nothing to do with it. Then why would you base your whole treatment plan on that? It doesn't make any sense.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I was listening to one of your podcasts recently with Dr. Ken Berry, and he's one of the doctors that I learned from a couple of years ago, and I still check out his content. But uh, he was saying on your pod, you were having a conversation with him about, I think it was a percentage of doctors. If you interviewed like 1,000 doctors, how many of them would be aware of, these types of issues. And either you or Ken, did mention that, probably 1%, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, because in your case, you check a fasting instance, see where you're at, and we know the problem right away. And in your case, we can see the triglycerides and the A1C, but we caught it after it was after you got the diagnosis, right? The pig was out of the pen or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But if we had checked an insulin 5 or 6 years before that, we could have saw you were on the road to this diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah. And that probably, if I would have got diagnosed earlier and had insulin and drugs, I probably would have been taking them. So, but I think my experience with the cancer, overcoming cancer with nutrition, that set me up in my brain to be immediately go the nutrition route or think about that. I said, well, is this an option? And that has helped me. That informs me on, I think all my future health decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing is like, unfortunately or fortunately, you had to go to Ken Berry, probably Jason Fung, probably
Yes.
Vinny Tortrich, and all these guys. You go, man, these guys are saying, and these guys are doing it for free on YouTube, and everyone calls these guys charlatans. You're like, I know these guys. They're not charlatans. They're out there saying, hey, look, here's what's working. You can't help all the world, but you help who you can. And I think that's one thing. And, to know that you have to go to Dr. YouTube, right?
Yeah.
To get health advice or to get on the right track and say, well, let me try this. And at least being an alpha dog enough to say, okay, let me try something different. What I'm doing got me to this situation I was in. Let me try something different than all the experts are saying and see what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this was about the time, let me see, 2 years ago. What was that? 2022. That's about the time I had coronavirus. And I did, one of the doctors I ran across, and maybe you know his name. I'll mention him if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Dr. Sunil Dand.
Awesome guy. Yeah, I had him on the
Yeah.
podcast. Great guy. Great doctor.
Yeah. So I found him and I was just like astounded at his content, and he was putting it out, and I'm sick at home with I never got diagnosed, but I had coronavirus, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My wife had coronavirus and she was diagnosed and was in the hospital for a little while, but so I'm sure I had it, but I'm not officially diagnosed with it. But anyway, I started listening I found Dr. Dand on YouTube and LinkedIn. And then like his videos were getting banned. And, then he's posting about, I got banned on this platform and that platform. And I was like, holy cow, what is going on here? It made no sense to me at all. And I don't want to get political or necessarily go down that path.
You can't hear. I've been banned four times.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Only from YouTube every time.
Yeah. No, yeah. Wow. I didn't know that.
That's talking incredible. To not banned, but my episode got taken out. Then they penalize you for a month. They don't show your episodes. So I just went over to Rumble and go, look, if you guys don't want real medical, and the 4 times, every time was with a doctor talking about what they were seeing in clinic. And they say it's medical without contacting either one of us. Like say, hey, is this crazy? What are you guys talking about here? But all of it turned out to be factually correct. All of it turned out to be, but that's just the way it is. That's the nature of the beast, because you look at who's sponsoring these guys and who's advertising, you go, oh, okay, I get it. You say you don't want to say bad things about the wrong people or it will get taken down. That's just, and Dr. Donda is the same way, man. He's just like, he's not afraid to say, like so many times he's posted something. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you said it, because I was thinking the same exact thing, but I wasn't going to say it. I didn't want to take the arrows that day. I want to relax a little bit with my wife and kids.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. It's really shocking to see it so blatantly. Before coronavirus, I had whatever opinions I had, but going through that experience, and I hope I'm not saying keywords that'll get you banned, but
no, I don't mind.
Yeah,
Rumble won't ban me. They're super great, and so hey,
okay.
if YouTube wants to not have people get real medical information, I know Dr. Berg got canceled. So many people got canceled because if you're enough of a threat to the system, they just don't like it. It's just the way it is. I mean, we should have freedom of speech, and where we say, hey, if I say something totally crazy, then obviously then that has to be taken care of. And but if it's something you go, no one's sure the end. I mean, at the time we were talking about it, we just don't have enough evidence to make the recommendation that our medical boards and all these guys are making. No one had the evidence. The medical board was like, hey, show me the evidence you got. So that's the problem, is when you can't make a promise. I can't tell you a car that's brand new is going to run in 20 years. I just don't know. It's just a brand new car. It just came on the market. I can't tell you what's going to happen in 20 years. I can tell you what can happen right now and what theoretically can happen based on past experience with other cars. But the point is, you can't guarantee things in medicine. And so now we're finding there's new drugs that have come on the market that everyone says is the panacea of health. You don't have to change your lifestyle and you lose weight, but we're seeing all the negative stuff happening. But once they got the market share, then they go, oh, well, we didn't know this and we'll take it off the market. And okay, so if a couple of people died, we'll worry about that later, right? Our income outweighed the damage we're going to have to pay out in legal fees.
Yeah, so I think more people are definitely waking up. I was just away this weekend. I was visiting with some family out of state, and saw some family members that I hadn't seen in a while. And it was interesting reconnecting and hearing they have been on a similar journey, and not with their health necessarily, but learning about health and learning about nutrition, and learning that what we have been taught, in the school system, in the education system, and from our doctors, we've been led astray, and we've been taught the wrong thing. And it's interesting how people are independently discovering the trouble that we're in, really.
Well, it took me like 16 years of practice to say, what are we doing? This
Wow.
isn't working. And I started seeing people come off insulin. I'm like, oh, it can happen. Because I absolutely remember seeing flyers. People would bring them in and go, doctor, look at this. This crazy chiropractor saying he get people off insulin. I'm like, that's impossible. You can't get, once they're on insulin, you don't come off insulin. That was just my mindset. Then Jason Fung and a few other docs. But I think roll along. And I think it's that whole thing is like, you may not be, this is so important in so many areas of life too, right? Finances, maybe, where you may not be in that area to listen right now. And then years later, you go, oh my gosh, what Ben was saying was right. You know what I mean? Once you
Yeah.
observe and you go, well, maybe Ben was pretty healthy. He didn't have cancer. He's doing the right stuff. Maybe I should reach out to him again, right? So if he was a jerk to you, you wouldn't have reached out to him because you go like, he'd be go, I told you, you idiot, right? You want someone who's going to be like saying, hey, look, I want to help you. Here's what I'm doing. Maybe it helps you, maybe it doesn't. And he may be more fanatical than he has to be, right? Who knows? And then you can kind of figure out the way forward from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
So what woke you up? You said you woke up during the when you got COVID. What does that mean? Oh, that you were just looking more at health information and learning more.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it. I can't remember when I got diagnosed. It must have been after I got coronavirus that I got diagnosed with the high blood sugar situation, the triglycerides. But I woke up to the fact that that there was information being suppressed when Dr. Dan got banned.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, they're suppressing. They're deliberately. The medical establishment is deliberately suppressing this information. I thought, from my previous experiences, it was like, oh, here's some, research that's up and coming, and I'm kind of on the cutting edge of research, and I'm a little bit ahead. They're going to figure out, the whole medical establishment's going to figure out that health and nutrition is the way to cure cancer. And, that never happened. And then having coronavirus and seeing that medical doctors are being banned from social media for the good content they're putting out, that's what I woke up to, the fact that, okay, this is manipulated in a higher level than I ever imagined. So that's what I woke up to.
Yeah, I think we all did. I woke up a few years before that when I saw what was happening. Gary Fedke and Professor Noakes talking about, hey, diabetics, if you cut your sugars out, we don't have to amputate your feet. We don't have to go through all these terrible things. And they said, don't eat cereal. Now you see cereal coming out on them. Now they're talking about some of the stuff they're putting in it that's causing infertility and all these other crazy things. You go, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah,
it is crazy because there was you see when there was definite collusion against these guys. All these guys were emailing, how do we get these guys? We can't let them their message. And they were both given the option to say, hey, just be quiet and do it in your little clinic and don't say anything publicly, and we'll leave you alone. You can keep your license on it. But instead, they fought this. They picked the wrong guys. They fought the system and went 3 years through trials, and then get vindicated. The judge looks at them like, "What the heck are we doing here? This is ridiculous. Look at the data you guys have." So, but if they don't do that, then we're not talking right now, right? Like, we're not going to be able to talk like that. So you're right. There's so much power in the system, and you start realizing what we're up against. Callie Means is doing a great job going around talking about how the system works, and you go, "Oh my god," because he was in the system, like, and no one could speak to the system like someone who was, worked for pharma and worked for soda company, right? So yeah, it is really like it's really eye opening because for me, I always thought, gosh, these government agencies have to have our best interests Like if you're the American Heart
Right.
Association, like you should be saying, look, I want to help people's heart. Like that's what your job is. Like American diabetes, like prevent diabetes. But then you realize who's sponsoring them, and you go, oh, there's a conflict of interest. Like there's no way
Right.
around it.
Right.
Whether it's changed what they're doing or not, well, it's kind of hard to say. And the same thing with when every ad on pharma is big food, or I mean on the news is big food for pharma. You talk about us, guess what? If I'm paying you to write a story about me, you think you're gonna say Brian's a jerk? If I'm paying you a ton of money to write that story, no way it's gonna happen. So it's just common sense. You go, okay, even if there's not collusion, it's the appearance of that for sure. Conflict of interest,
Yeah, it's so obvious now.
And I think for most people, it's becoming more. I mean, most people I talk to are like, "Oh my gosh, did you hear this? Did you see that?" And so it's hard because there's nothing. There's not being a doctor. I can tell you with 100% certainty, there's no drug I can give you that doesn't have side effects or potential problem or potential to kill you, right? There's nothing in medicine like that. And these people just say, "Oh, it's the best thing ever," no, and there's no problem. Well, I've already interviewed at least 10 people who've had issues, right? And you go, there's issues. There's got to be. So to say you can only talk about the good part of something is not, just like you. If you're selling a property, you can't just say all the good stuff and not say, oh, yeah, there was a slab leak, but I'm not going to say anything. And they have mold and, someone killed themselves on the third floor.
Exactly.
Right. There's certain things you have to disclose these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And in the investing world too. I mean, there's a lot, well, just investing in general, people ask me about, well, the other day somebody called me and says, listen, I want to invest, but want to make sure it's guaranteed I won't lose any capital and that I get a high return. And I said, well, no, that's not how this works,
Yeah, and that's it. And I think that's what I think about it. It's fun. I'm glad I'm talking to you about this too, because I've known people throughout my life that have this get rich quick scheme stuff going on, right? It's the same thing with diet. They go, shoot this drug or take this pill or watch Dr. Oz and eat white oak bark and you'll lose all your weight. It's like, it was that great. Everyone would be doing it, right? These things come and they go and they come and they go. And that's what I go, look, low carb, keto, carnivore, those things come and go if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just comes and goes. And it's they go, yeah, these crazy people were doing that for a while. But when it's working for so many people and the argument is non-sustainable, it's like, okay, let's talk to Tro about that. Let's see Tro's study and his data. So we have a lot of data coming back with mental health, depression, anxiety. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like the stuff I'm seeing now, gut microbiome. It's just you sit back and go, oh my gosh, how could we have had it wrong for so long? It's incredible.
So what happened to me? I want to
hear. I don't want to miss this
on
part
something. Getting back to the story of so the doctor said I should there's no way I can beat this with nutrition alone. I needed the medication. So the next day I went, or 2 days later on a Friday, I went to have a it was Thursday. I had the blood test done. And then the numbers came back Friday and they were way down. My A1C was down. I think it was in the low 6, high 5s, something like that.
How long was this after the previous A1C?
30 days.
So, and that just tells me you're well. I mean, that's a 3-month sugar average. So if in 30 days you can lower that much, I can guarantee you your A1C is like way lower than that because 2 months of that was the old sugars being really high.
Yeah.
So that's amazing in 1 month because usually I don't even check it at a month. Some of my patients I do if I'm really nervous about their insulin levels, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, he checked it because that was part of his diagnosis or his procedure, I guess, process of me seeing him. And
you weren't taking the meds.
I went to, so that's what I wanted to tell you. So I had these 2 medications before I went in, before Thursday, I had decided I am not going to take the diabetes medication. And I forget what it was, what it
Metformin.
is. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah.
Almost 100%.
I did enough research to say, no, I am not taking this. The triglycerides one, I was like more confounded and confused and wasn't getting clear information about. And so I took 1 pill on Thursday morning. And then I decided, no, I'm not going to take this anymore. So 1 pill on Thursday, had the blood test done on Friday. The results came back with my numbers way lower. And for 30 days of good nutrition is what caused my good numbers. The next week, I got a letter from the doctor, and the letter actually said, we see that the medicine we prescribed is working Your blood tests have great results. Keep up what you're doing. And I thought, this is the biggest bunch of BS I have ever seen in my life. There, he made a pronouncement without even knowing the data. And I was in his office and I told him I changed my nutrition. He knew that the new blood test was new. So I don't know if it was the
Because in
doctor
his
or somebody
mind,
else
it
in the
can't
office.
be from that. In his mind, it can't be. That's what I mean. In medicine, we have our minds made up of what's going to help, what's not going to help. So, when you like for us now, like, Tro and I mean, it's funny. I'm not Tro and I mean, now we have thousands of doctors, right? But the triglycerides are going to come down. The HDL is going to go up. The A1C is going to come down. The insulin is going to, you just know these things. I mean, it just happens. There's no exception to this rule when you're watching your lifestyle and exercising, watching your stress, all these things that we kind of hammer home all the time. You start realizing, okay, it doesn't just have to be the drug, because the thing, and this I just laugh because how God worked over my life, right? So Jason Fung comes along, and I'm looking at him like, uh, he goes, Brian, his question to me was this: Brian, you put your new diabetics on insulin. Do you think the insulin makes the sugar? What do you think the insulin does to the sugar? You think it makes it disappear magically? It's shoving into the tissues, and you go, okay, let's shove all the garbage into the closet, and you go, look, I cleaned the house, everything's great. That's not great. You have a bunch of crap in your closet, so you have to clean out, right? At some point, you have to clean out the closet. Otherwise, you're going to get overflown with junk. So yeah, I mean, people like that come along and they make a huge difference in medicine and life. And so for you, you made those changes and got your life squared away.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just lost all faith, in that his response through the letter. I don't know if he wrote it or his staff wrote it. I don't know. Regardless of that, it doesn't really matter that, his name is on it. They did not give any thought to what they were saying at all. They were just so convinced in their own world. And I don't, well, I understand that, it's groupthink and they're blind, just working with blinders on. But the failure to take in the data is about as, unscientific as you can get. And they push that, oh, this is science. You need to trust the science. Well, you're not considering all the data, and you're telling me that's science. So, yeah, anyway, so that's where I'm at now. It's been 2 years. I need to go in. I should go in for a blood test, and I'll do that here soon. But I think my numbers are going to be way down.
And how are you feeling?
Oh, I feel great.
And you said at one point you were eating from morning till night all the time. Do you still do that?
No, no, I took Dr. Fung's advice, and really took to heart his teaching on intermittent fasting, or especially shortening the window of time that I eat. So I won't eat until the earliest will be late in the morning or maybe a noon meal. And then I won't eat, it's better if I don't eat after 5 or 6 o'clock, but I'll eat up until maybe 8 o'clock. If I come home, busy day, whatever, I'll cook something and eat. So maybe an 8 hour window, 8 or 9 hour window is when I'm eating food, compared to 16 hours of eating and 8 hours of fasting just when I'm sleeping, basically. So that was a huge change, and I continue to do that. Yeah.
So what did your wife and family think when you started making these lifestyle changes? Do they like ask what was going on, or they supported you?
Well,
How did that work out?
yeah, when I had cancer, that's a really good question. My wife and I do have different eating habits and styles. She doesn't eat as healthy as I do, but she's, come a long way too. I'm more the fanatic about it. But when I had cancer and wanted to kind of take over the kitchen, so that I could control what I eat and know what I'm, really, that was hard for her. But I needed control. I needed to have time in there with my, buy different pots and pans and cooking utensils and things that would work for me rather than the stuff she used. And, I wanted to use better quality stuff.
Well,
And
and I think that's a huge point. That's an alpha dog mindset too, because other people go, well, my wife keeps making this terrible food, so I can't change what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna die of cancer, right? It's just like saying, okay, look, you
you
can
know,
get out there and like throw 4 eggs in a pan, put some butter in there, cook it, you're good, right?
yeah,
Or grab a can of tuna, right? Yeah, there's stuff you can do, but that's the thing too, is like, for me, one of the biggest, so Tro and I have talked about this for 5 years, 6 years now, is the two big killers of any lifestyle change are lack of family support and stress. Those two, you get those under control, everything else gets better. So when your wife goes, yeah, maybe I won't eat pizza every night, maybe because it's hard when a lot of us struggle. Yep. And it doesn't sound like food was your addiction, like a lot of people it is, but it's more like just habit of what you did, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my kids are grown, so it really didn't affect it didn't affect our family. We had, our kids were grown and gone. Well, I think one daughter was at home 12 years ago. Yeah, she was in high school. But it wasn't like a major impact. If it would have happened when my kids were younger, it would have been probably more of it would have affected our family life a lot more than it did happening when it did in my life. So yeah, I can see that. So let me ask you a question about this, because I'm a little bit confused about it's a nutrition question, and you can punt on it if you want. But when I had cancer, one of the things that I thought I needed to avoid was also salt. Um, and I stopped all processed food and started reading labels, and the canned goods, just had so much salt quantity. So I really cut out most of my salt, wouldn't eat anything, and I still don't eat processed foods out of a can with a high salt content, but I'm less concerned about salt now than I was 12 years ago, having learned a little bit more about the keto diet and it's better to cut carbs and that sort of thing. So kind of on the fence, I'll probably eat more salt. I probably eat more salt. I do eat more salt now than I did 12 years ago when I made one big change. What's your take on that? Is there any pros and cons of eating too much salt?
I think that's a good point. I think in the setting of processed food, I think it's definitely an issue, right? So when people go, "Oh, you eat too much salt," well, if you cut out processed food, like you don't go get a can of Campbell's soup and look at how much sugar's in it. I mean, salt's in it and sugar maybe. So you look at that and you go, and I think Dr. Unwin's done good work with this and really changed my view on these things. In that 90% of high blood pressure is from high insulin. If you lower the insulin to a normal range, salt doesn't make much of a difference. So the big problem we see in a ketogenic diet is people are afraid of salt. They go on a ketogenic diet, they drop their insulin from 52 down to 10, and they feel like garbage because they pee out all that salt. You didn't lose 20 pounds of fat weight in that first week. So you're peeing out extra salt, basically, right? Salt and water when you lower your insulin level. So it just depends on what kind of diet people are on. People are on a high carb diet, I'm like, cut salt, because salt is going to be high, because insulin, people don't realize, makes you hold on to sodium in your renal tubules in their kidneys. So when you lower insulin, you pee out more salt. That's just the way it works. So people in heart failure all the time, when they go on a ketogenic diet, their heart failure gets better a lot. Why? They're diuresing. They're getting rid of that extra salt that they've been holding on to for the last 20 years. It makes them not breathe. So yeah, there's a lot to this, and really keeping the electrolytes corrected. So a lot of my patients are taking supplements like Element or red mint salt, things like that, adding in a good salt source to their salting their food, but not going crazy where you add salt to everything. But I think it's just really knowing where you're at, because most of us we'll know we had too much salt when our rings don't come off, or our feet are swollen, those kind of things. You go, okay, dial it back, make sure you're drinking enough water too, alternating those things. And and it all obviously depends on how active you are, how much you're sweating and working out and going in saunas and all those kind of things. Because if you're doing that, it's a lot different than just sitting there, watching TV all day, what your salt needs are going to be.
Right.
But there's no set answer on that other than clinical diagnosis. If your blood pressure starts going up, you go, okay, let's look at salt and insulin levels and see where we're at. And so it's astounding how many people will come off their blood pressure medicines. And it's amazing because it's always the same story. Like, this is the hallmark thing I'm telling you about, where you can predict the ending. Is I have a guy, he's 2 stents in his heart. His cardiologist is like, Brian, what the heck are you doing? You're putting this guy on a low carb diet. Yeah, why? Well, his A1C is super high, his insulin's through the roof. If we get those right, his blood pressure is going to normalize. He's going to feel great. Let's put him on a low carb diet. The guy, like a month later, goes into the cardiologist, and his note sends to me, oh, he's lost 20 pounds. He's doing a great job with his diet. Low fat diet. There's not a low fat diet he's eating, but that's what the cardiologist wants it to be. Low fat diet, lost 20 pounds. Now he's off his meds and his blood pressure is great. It's because of the weight loss. And I'm like, it's not because of the weight loss, because his insulin dropped from like 62 down to 12. That's why. Because weight loss in itself, this is what people don't understand. if I send the same guy in, if I sent that guy in and I took 20 pounds of fat off his love handles with liposuction, his blood pressure's not going to change. It might even
Right.
go up. Might even go up. With it's
Wow.
not the weight. It's not the weight that you're carrying around. Like if you put on 20 pounds of muscle, it's not going to make your blood pressure go up. It's going to make it go down. So it's really about
Mhm.
the metabolic health, right? This is what we're
Yeah.
starting to figure out. When your triglycerides are through the roof, we have study after study. Lowering the triglycerides does not decrease your cardiac risk. Why? It's a sign of the problem. The problem is your liver's overfilled and you can't put any more sugar in there and it forms triglycerides. So it tells me
Hmm.
we got to fix the liver. We get that fixed, the triglycerides take care of themselves. You don't need a drug for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why
Absolutely.
it's so because people see the triglycerides and go, we have to treat that. It's just like anything. If you're sunburned all the time, we don't just say, okay, let's just keep putting more skin cream on to you go get out of the sun. The sun's the problem. So that's why
Mhm.
that's what's happening in medicine is we go, okay, here's the problem, here's how you treat it. High blood pressure, this drug, this drug, this. Here's the set of things. Not no one talks
Mhm.
about lifestyle. Or
Yeah.
they'll say, yeah, you can talk about lifestyle, but when that doesn't work, here's the next thing you do. Because the lifestyle they're telling you is a low fat, high carbohydrate lifestyle, which is going to raise your blood pressure.
Hmm.
We have the data on that. And all these people are talking about DASH diet and all this other crazy stuff. You go, look, they never had data. They never had long-term data. They had a short little trial, like
Hmm.
a week long or something. It's ridiculous.
Hmm.
So, anyways, I know you got another call, so I want to ask you before
Yeah.
we get too far along. First of all, I want to ask you if you have a piece of advice for someone who wants to change their lifestyle. Like, what advice would you give them? As far as what do you think is helpful for most people out there listening who might have just got diagnosed with diabetes or cancer?
Yeah. That's a great question. I will say, and it kind of dovetails to what you were just talking about. Um, I'll answer the question this way. A side effect that I had in going on a keto diet, my intention was to lower my blood sugar, which I did, but I lost 25 pounds without trying. My intention wasn't to lose weight. My intention was to eat healthy, lower my blood sugar. I felt great, felt satisfied eating food, and I lost weight. So I would tag that in on my advice to people. A lot of people are concerned about their weight and they think the weight is the problem. But if they address like a root cause, uh, I know I went cold turkey, on my nutrition journey 2 times, big time in my life, and that may not be feasible for most people if unless they're facing a brick wall like I was. Um, so I would recommend just start learning and put the nutritious food in your body and stop eating the stuff that's bad for you. Cut out processed foods. If that's a baby step for somebody, do that. Stop eating highly processed foods. Read the labels. If you can't understand what's on the label, don't eat it. Um,
Great advice. I think just making that one step. You don't have to be hardcore
yeah.
carnivore, you know, whatever, carnivore, vegan, but just go look, cut out the processed garbage. I think we can all agree on that. We don't have to fight with carnivores and different ends of the spectrum. It's like gravitate
Hmm.
to what you like and how your body feels good. Right?
Hmm.
Or if it's an ethical or religious reason, okay, you might want to go with the more vegan side of it or vegetarian side. Hopefully, you eat eggs and that will give you some protein and you're good to go. So I think that's one issue too. And then, finding out what works for you, like saying, okay, I made one change, it wasn't working anymore, so I'm going to make another change to see what happens. And that shows, that's what we need to have that, changing variables and seeing what works for you. And now I have to ask you, since this is life's best medicine. So, what's life's best medicine for you, John? Like, where do you go when things are rough? What gets you out of bed? What motivates you? What gets you excited about life? Or anything that you have that you'd want to share with people that is life's best medicine for you?
Yeah, two things for me. One is it really comes down to do what you love. I love what I do. I got into real estate investing um, as a second career. I've been doing it for 14 years and I love it. And that motivates me. I enjoy what I do and enjoy helping people on different aspects of real estate, selling real estate, helping them find their home for people that are in a position where they can invest money into real estate. I love helping people find opportunities to do that and better themselves and get put their money to work, so that one of the phrases I like to say is invest passively and work less. And people that have the means to invest, they can, I like helping them think through some issues. So that financial issues that they can begin their journey of thinking how they can use their finances more effectively to not be in a rat race all the time. So that's one thing. The other thing is my faith. I'm very active at my church. I love I love that. I do a lot of volunteer work. I volunteer. They host an event every year called the Woodstock International Food Festival here in Woodstock, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So I volunteer for that. In the last couple of years, I learned to make some Eastern European food, and I've got a friend from Brazil. He's on the grill making kebabs, and I've got an Italian friend, the sausage and his mother's recipe from the sausage and peppers and onions. It just like all this fantastic food I've learned to, some of it I've learned to cook, but I've learned to eat all of it as well. And I'm more discriminating on, I don't eat everything on the menu, but anyway, I enjoy that. And that's really important to me. So the bottom line is do what you enjoy, do what you love.
Man, there's no better advice. I feel like that every day. I go, I love what I do. I love this. I love doing podcasts. I love learning new things. And like you're saying, try different foods, try different ethnic, foods, or, I think say, gosh, I love that about your faith, or I love this about what you're doing here. And saying, I want to implement that into what I'm doing. Right. And like helping the community, going out and then getting to know people of all different, cultures, and understand like, oh, I get why you do it that way. And that, like, I like this spice I never had before. You learn so much just by trying new things and getting out there a little bit, and getting to know people and building community. It's a huge thing. Like, people underestimate the power of community, and that's what is great about your story too, is like you had to learn from YouTube, Ken Berry, and all these other guys who are doing that, and that's why we do it. It's like someone's hurting and struggling, go, look, we worked a lot of years to figure this stuff out, and so we like to share it for free and, like, help you get a better life. We get reward out of that. It's not a financial reward, but it's a reward nonetheless when people go, oh my gosh, my life got better, based on something you said 5 years ago. And that just recently happened to me. I was like, wow, cool. So, these things kind of happen, and your journey is pretty amazing. If people want to contact you, if they want to buy a house,
so my website, my go-to website is my name, John Marion, JohnMarion, johnmarion.com. Go there. And actually I now have, so that's the main site. It's all about real estate. But if you go to the topic section, there's a pull down. I added a health and nutrition tab on there so people can read the blog post about my journey in reversing type 2 diabetes.
Awesome stuff, man. Yeah, no one believed that can happen. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate
Brian,
the time.
thank you. Yeah.
And
thank you for what you're doing. I think I really want to encourage you and thank you for what you're doing, because the content that you're putting out there, is just fantastic. And I see you mostly on Twitter, and I love seeing what you're posting, and I think it's great. So I hope people, if they're not on Twitter or don't know you on Twitter, they need to connect with you and see what you're posting.
All right. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. We try. And hey, everyone out there, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. If you're not doing great in life and things aren't working, like, figure it out. Make little changes here and there. Go, okay, maybe I just cut out that one thing I thought I couldn't live without. Like, John can survive without soda. Maybe you can, and donuts. Maybe you can survive without, eating pretzels all day, like we both did for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And, thinking we're being healthy. So everyone, hey, thanks for listening. Keep up the great work, and go on and enjoy life a little bit today. Go and take a breath. This is what I would tell most of my patients: take a breath, go enjoy the sunset, go enjoy the sunrise. If you're up early, go for a little hike, go do something you enjoy, and just know when you go to bed at night that you took good care of your body that day, and or you helped someone in life. And that's what it's really ultimately about, not whether you eat carbs or not. It's really about your enjoyment and your engagement with other people in life. So thank you for your continued support. Thanks for listening. And thanks, John. I greatly appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.